His own mother looked me in the eyes and said, "Get away from him while you still can." I had been with this man for over a year. I thought I knew him. I thought he was safe. I thought finally, after everything I had been through as an immigrant woman trying to build a life in this country, I had found something real. But the truth she told me that day in that shopping mall, it changed everything. There was a knife. There were other women. And there was a side of him I had never seen. My name is Preeti. I came to the United States when I was 13 years old. And this is the story of the most dangerous choice I ever had to make. Stay with the man I loved, or trust the warning of the woman who raised him. Stay with me, because this story, it gets a lot deeper than you think. I remember the exact moment I thought things were finally working out for me. It was a Sunday afternoon in October, and Ryan had just surprised me with flowers, sunflowers, my favorite, and we were sitting in his apartment watching a movie, my legs across his lap, a blanket over us. The heater was making that soft humming noise. The city outside was quiet, and I thought, this is it. This is the life I was waiting for. I am Preeti Gupta. I am 29 years old. I moved to the United States when I was 13, which means I have been here for 16 years now, more than half my life. And still, some days, I feel like I am always trying to prove that I belong. In this country, in this city, in the spaces I walk into. My parents came from a small town in Punjab. My dad worked 2 jobs when we first got here. My mom cleaned houses on the weekends. They did everything so that my brother and I could have a better shot at life. And honestly, we did okay. I went to college. I got a job in marketing. I have my own apartment, my own car, my own little world that I built piece by piece. But one thing that never quite came together, at least not for a long time, was love. I had dated before. A guy from college who was sweet but too scared to commit. A man from work who turned out to already have a girlfriend. A few others that just fizzled out for reasons I could not always explain. Some of my friends, the ones who had also grown up between 2 cultures, said it was hard for them too, trying to find someone who understood both sides of who you are, someone who did not see your Indian background as something strange or exotic, but just as part of you. So when I met Ryan, I was not expecting much. It was at a friend's birthday party. He was tall, laughed a lot, asked me questions about myself, and actually listened to the answers. He did not make any weird comments about my name or where I was from. He just treated me like a normal person, which sounds like a low bar, I know, but you would be surprised. We started dating in January of last year. By March, I knew I really liked him. By summer, I thought I might be falling in love. He was attentive. He remembered things, like that I hate cilantro, that my left knee makes a weird sound when I climb stairs, that I always get anxious before phone calls with my mom. He would text me good morning almost every day. He came to my apartment with food when I was sick. He met my best friend, Divya, and charmed her completely, which is not easy because Divya is suspicious of everyone. Everything felt right, except for one thing. In all those months together, almost a full year by the time I really started paying attention, Ryan had never once introduced me to his family. At first, I did not think much about it. His parents lived about 2 hours away, in a smaller town in Pennsylvania. He visited them maybe once every couple of months. And every single time there was a trip planned, something came up. His dad had a last-minute doctor's appointment. His mom was traveling to see her sister. His parents were doing renovations and the house was a mess. His dad had caught a bad cold. Always something. I told myself it was not a big deal. Some families are just like that. Some people take longer to introduce a partner. I did not want to push. I did not want to be that girlfriend who makes everything into a problem. But then a small voice in the back of my head started whispering things I did not want to hear. What if they don't want to meet you because of where you're from? I tried to ignore it. I really did. But once a thought like that gets in, it is hard to shake. I started replaying little things. The way Ryan would sometimes go quiet when his mom called and he was with me, stepping out of the room to answer, keeping the conversation short. The way he never really talked about his family much. I knew his mom's name was Linda. I knew his dad was named Gary and that he had been a firefighter. That was basically it, after almost a year. One night I brought it up. We were at dinner, a Thai place we both liked, and I kept it casual. I said something like, "Hey, do you think I'll ever get to meet your parents? It's been a while." He smiled, but it was not a relaxed smile. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they are buying time. "Of course," he said. "It's just hard with their schedule. My dad has been dealing with some health stuff. I don't want to add stress to that." I nodded. I said I understood. But I went home that night, and I sat on my bathroom floor for 20 minutes, just staring at the tiles. Something was off. I could not explain it. I could not point to anything specific. Ryan had never been mean to me. He had never raised his voice. He had never done anything that I could look at and say, "See, that's the problem." But there was a feeling, like a low humming in my chest that would not go away. Divya noticed it before I said anything out loud. We were having coffee at her place, and she looked at me over her mug and said, "You look worried. Is it Ryan?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe. I'm probably overthinking." She set her mug down. "Preeti, when has your gut ever been wrong?" I did not have a good answer for that. 3 weeks later, I got a message on Instagram from an account I did not recognize. No profile picture. The username was just a random mix of letters and numbers. And the message said, "Hi, my name is Linda. I'm Ryan's mother. I think we need to talk, but please don't tell him I reached out. This is important." I stared at my phone for a long time. My hands were not shaking yet, but they would be soon. I must have read that message 15 times before I put my phone down. "Hi, my name is Linda. I'm Ryan's mother." I kept thinking, this has to be fake. Someone playing a joke. Maybe an ex of his trying to cause problems. People do crazy things when they are jealous or bitter, and I had learned a long time ago not to trust everything that shows up in your inbox. But something about the message did not feel like a joke. There was no drama in it, no big accusations, no exclamation points, just a calm, simple request. "I think we need to talk." Like a woman who had something serious to say and had chosen her words very carefully before saying them. I did not respond right away. I put my phone face down on the kitchen counter and tried to go about my evening. I made tea. I watched 20 minutes of a show I was not paying attention to. I folded laundry. Normal things. Things that keep your hands busy when your brain will not slow down. Then I picked up the phone again and looked at the message one more time. I typed back, "How do I know you're really his mom?" Her response came in less than 5 minutes. She sent a photo. It was her and Ryan at what looked like a Christmas dinner. A real home, a real table with food on it, tinsel on the wall behind them. Ryan was younger in the picture, maybe early 20s, but it was clearly him. Same smile, same eyes. And next to him was a woman with short gray hair and kind-looking eyes, wearing a red sweater. Then she sent another message. "I know this is strange. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to please meet me. Just once. Somewhere public, somewhere you feel safe. I'll explain everything in person." I sat with that for 2 full days. I did not tell Ryan. I thought about it. I went back and forth probably 100 times. Part of me felt like I was doing something behind his back just by considering it. We were in a relationship. Should I not be telling him that his mother had contacted me in secret? But then I thought about all those months of excuses, all those canceled visits, all those phone calls he stepped out of the room to take. And I thought about what Divya had said. "When has your gut ever been wrong?" I wrote back to Linda on the second night and said, "Okay, tell me when and where." She picked a mall about 40 minutes from where I lived, a big busy place with lots of people and lots of exits, which in that moment actually made me feel better. She said she would be near the coffee shop on the second floor wearing a blue coat. She asked me to come on a Thursday afternoon around 2 when Ryan would be at work. I took a personal day. The drive there was strange. I had the radio on, but I could not tell you what was playing. I kept running through scenarios in my head. What if this was nothing? What if Linda was just one of those overprotective mothers who did not like any woman her son dated? What if I was about to sit down with a woman who was going to tell me something weird and controlling, like that Ryan was supposed to marry someone from their town, or that she just did not like that I was Indian? I had been in situations like that before, not with Ryan, but in general. Being a woman of color in spaces where not everyone is happy to see you, you develop a kind of armor. You learn to prepare for the thing that might sting. But I also thought about the other possibility, the one I kept pushing to the back of my mind because it scared me more. What if she had something real to say? I got to the mall at 1:50. I walked around for a few minutes just to settle my nerves. Then went up to the second floor and found the coffee shop. And there she was. Blue coat, short gray hair. She was sitting at a small table near the window, both hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, and she was watching the entrance like she had been watching it for a while. When she saw me, she stood up right away, not fast or startled, just steady, like someone who had made a decision and was not going to change her mind about it. "Preety," she said, not a question. "Yes," I said. "Linda?" She nodded and held out her hand. I shook it. Her grip was firm, but not aggressive. She gestured to the chair across from her, and we both sat down. For a second, neither of us said anything. I looked at her and thought, she looks tired. Not the tired of someone who did not sleep well. The tired that lives behind someone's eyes after years of carrying something heavy. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is a strange situation." "It is," I said. I was trying to keep my voice calm. "Can I ask you something first?" She nodded. "Does Ryan know you're here?" "No," she said. "And I need to keep it that way, at least for now." I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup I had ordered at the counter before sitting down. "Okay, so what did you want to tell me?" She looked at me for a moment, not in a rude way, more like she was making sure she was ready, like she had practiced this and still was not sure it was going to come out right. Then she said, "My son is not a bad person. I want you to know that I believe that. I love him. But love does not mean I can ignore what I have seen, and I have seen things that I cannot pretend are not real." I did not say anything. I just waited. "He had a relationship a few years ago," she said. "A serious one. They were together for almost 2 years. At first everything seemed fine, but over time he became controlling. He would check her phone. He would get angry if she talked to certain people. He would follow her sometimes to see where she was going." She paused. She took a slow sip of her coffee. "At the end of it," she said, "there was an incident. He had a knife. I do not know exactly what happened because I was not there. But the girl called the police. He was arrested. He spent time in jail. He went through a program after, therapy, anger management, all of it. And he has been better since then. I really believe he has been trying." My mouth was dry. I could hear the noise of the mall all around us, people talking, music playing somewhere, a child laughing, and it all sounded very far away. "But," I said, because I could hear the but coming. She looked at me with those tired eyes. "But he is not ready," she said quietly, "and I do not think he knows that himself. He has been avoiding bringing you home because deep down he knows I will see it. I will see the signs I have seen before. He knows I will say something." She reached across the table slowly, not to touch me, just to close some of the space between us. "I reached out to you because I could not reach out to the others in time," she said, "and I have lived with that. I am not going to live with it again." I sat there for what felt like a very long time. Outside the window, the parking lot was bright and ordinary, cars moving in slow lines, a woman pushing a stroller, a teenager on his phone, the whole world just going about its business, completely unaware that mine had just shifted under my feet. I finally looked at Linda and said the only thing I could think to say, "What do you think I should do?" She shook her head gently. "I cannot make that choice for you. I just needed you to know the truth." We sat together for another 20 minutes or so. She answered the questions I asked as honestly as she could. She did not try to make Ryan sound like a monster. She did not try to make herself sound like a hero. She was just a mother telling me something she clearly wished she did not have to tell anyone. When I got back to my car, I sat in the parking garage for a long time without starting the engine. Ryan was going to call me at 6. We had plans to get dinner, and I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. Ryan called at 6, exactly like he said he would. I was still sitting in my apartment, still in the same clothes I had worn to the mall, and I had not eaten anything since a granola bar at noon. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I looked at his name on the screen and felt something I had never felt before when I saw it. Fear. Not the dramatic, heart-pounding kind you see in movies. Something quieter than that. A cold, slow feeling that settled in my stomach and stayed there. I picked up. "Hey," he said. His voice was warm. Normal. Completely normal. "You ready? I was thinking we could try that new place on 5th, the one Divya recommended." "Sure," I said. "Sounds good." My own voice surprised me. How steady it was. How ordinary I made it sound. Like I had not just spent the afternoon sitting across from his mother while she told me about a knife and an arrest, and women he had hurt before me. "You okay?" he asked. "You sound a little tired." "Long day," I said. "I'll tell you about it later." Which was, of course, a lie. Or at least half of one. I was not going to tell him about it later. I did not know what I was going to do, but I knew I was not ready to say anything yet. I needed time to think. I needed to figure out what was real and what I was supposed to do with it. The restaurant was nice. Warm lighting, small tables close together, the kind of place that makes you feel like you are supposed to be having a romantic evening. And Ryan was in a good mood. He talked about his day, a funny thing that happened at work, a podcast he had been listening to about history. He ordered us a bottle of wine and poured my glass first, the way he always did. I watched him. I mean, really watched him. The way you look at someone when you are trying to see through them instead of just at them. He laughed at something he said, and I noticed how easy the laugh came, how relaxed his face was, how completely unbothered he seemed. And I kept thinking, is this who he really is? Or is this a version of him? And how would I even know the difference? That is the thing nobody tells you about learning something like what Linda told me. It does not just change the way you feel, it changes the way you see. Every memory you have of a person suddenly gets re-examined. You go back through everything and you look for the signs you missed, and you start to wonder if the warmth was real or if you were just a person who wanted it to be real so badly that you made yourself believe it. "You're quiet tonight," Ryan said, somewhere between the appetizers and the main course. "Sorry," I said, "just in my head a little. Anything you want to talk about?" I looked at him across the table. The candlelight was doing that thing it does where it makes everything look softer, warmer, safer than it might actually be. "Not right now," I said. "I'm okay." He reached across the table and put his hand over mine, and I let him. Because what was I supposed to do? Pull away? He had not done anything. Not to me. Not yet. And I was sitting there holding the story his mother had told me like something sharp in my pocket, afraid to take it out, afraid to leave it in there. I smiled at him, and I hated how easy it was to smile. That night after dinner, after he dropped me off and hugged me at the door and said he would call me tomorrow, I sat on my kitchen floor, not the couch, not my bed, the floor, and I called Divya. She picked up on the second ring. "What happened?" she said. Not a question. She already knew from the way I sounded. I told her everything. The Instagram message, the mall, the blue coat, Linda's tired eyes, the knife, the arrest, the therapy, all of it. I talked for probably 30 minutes without stopping, and Divya did not interrupt once. When I finally went quiet, she let the silence sit for a moment. Then she said, "Preeti, how are you feeling right now? Not what you think. How are you feeling?" I thought about it honestly. "Scared," I said, "and sad, and really, really confused." "Okay," she said, "that makes sense. But also," I said, and this is the part that made me feel ashamed even saying it out loud, I keep thinking, what if Linda is the one with the problem? What if she's just a controlling mother who wants to keep her son from being happy? What if she exaggerated everything or made it worse than it was? Divya was quiet for a second. "Is that what your gut is telling you?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "My gut is telling me she was telling the truth." "Then you have your answer," she said. "Even if you don't like it." I pressed my back against the cabinet under the sink and stared at the ceiling. "I love him, Divya." "I know," she said. Soft, no judgment. Or at least, I love who I thought he was. "That's the hard part," she said, figuring out if those are the same person. We talked for another hour. She did not tell me what to do. She is smart enough to know that when someone is in the middle of something like this, what they need is not instructions. They need someone to stay on the line with them. For the next 4 days, I went on like everything was normal. Ryan and I texted the way we always did. I went to work. I went to the gym. I ate meals and answered emails and did all the small, ordinary things that make up a life. But underneath all of it, constantly, was the question I could not stop turning over in my head. I did a lot of reading during those 4 days. I am not proud of some of it. Going down internet paths at 2 a.m, looking up things like how to tell if your partner has a history of abuse and signs of a controlling relationship, and what it means when someone hides you from their family. That last one hit me harder than I expected. There were so many stories. Women of all backgrounds, all ages, all situations, and a lot of them said the same thing. The hiding was always a sign. Not always of danger, but always of something. On the third night, I did something I had not planned to do. I looked up Ryan's name. I felt strange doing it, like I was crossing a line. We had been together for over a year, and I had never done this. Never searched for him the way you search for someone you do not trust. I had always thought that kind of thing was what people did when they were paranoid or jealous. I did not want to be that kind of person, but I typed his name into the search bar anyway. Most of what came up was nothing. A LinkedIn profile, an old photo tagged at a friend's birthday, a comment he had left on a local news article years ago. Normal stuff, nothing that told me anything. And then, on the second page of results, I found something small. It was a brief mention in a local Pennsylvania newspaper. No big article. Just a few lines in a police report summary from about 4 years ago. A name that matched his, an address that matched the town his parents lived in, and a charge, assault, domestic, case later settled, no further details. I stared at that for a long time, because here is the thing about seeing something like that in black and white on a screen. Up until that moment, I could still tell myself that maybe Linda had stretched the truth, that maybe she misremembered, that maybe the story was more complicated than she made it sound, and somewhere in the middle of all that complication, Ryan was actually fine. But that little paragraph, those few dry, boring words in a newspaper no one reads, made it real in a way that Linda's voice had not fully been able to. It happened. It was documented. It was true. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark for a while. And then I did something that surprised even me. I opened Instagram and typed a reply to Linda. I looked him up. I wrote. I found the article. I believe you. I just don't know what to do next. Her reply came the next morning. That's okay, she wrote. You don't have to know yet. Just please be careful. And please don't tell him we talked. Not until you're somewhere safe. That last line. Not until you're somewhere safe. I read it 3 times. And each time, the cold thing in my stomach got a little heavier. Because until that moment, I had not been thinking about safety. I had been thinking about heartbreak, about trust, about what was true and what was not. I had been thinking about the relationship. I had not been thinking about myself. I want to be honest about something. Even after everything, the conversation with Linda, the newspaper article, the message about being somewhere safe, I still did not leave right away. I know how that sounds. I have heard people say before, when they listen to stories like this, things like, why didn't she just go, or that would never be me? And I used to think that way too, if I am being completely honest, before I was in it. Before I understood what it actually feels like to be inside something that looks completely fine from the outside and only starts showing its cracks when you get close enough. The truth is, leaving is not a single moment. It is not one decision you make and then everything is resolved. It is 100 small decisions and doubts and fears and moments where you convince yourself that maybe you are the one making it bigger than it is. So I stayed, for a little while longer. And during that time, I started paying attention in a way I had never paid attention before. The first thing I noticed was the questions. Ryan had always asked me about my day, about my plans, about who I was spending time with. I had always thought of it as him being interested in my life, caring, present. But now, with different eyes, I started to hear something else underneath the questions. One evening I mentioned that I was going to grab coffee with a coworker named James, someone from my team, someone I had known for 2 years, someone I had mentioned before with no issue. Ryan's face did not change much, but his voice got a little tighter. James, he said, is that the guy from your marketing team? Yes, I said. We're just going over a project. On a Friday evening? We both had late meetings, I said. It's nothing. He nodded. He said, okay, cool. He changed the subject, but later that night he texted me twice while I was still out with James. Once to say hi, once to ask when I was heading home, and when I got back and called him, there was something in his voice. Not angry, not accusing, just a kind of flatness that had not been there before. I filed it away. The second thing I noticed was how he talked about his past. We had talked about exes before, the way couples do, but never in great detail. I had mentioned mine briefly, and he had done the same. But one night we were watching something on TV, and there was a breakup scene, and out of nowhere he said, my last relationship ended really badly. She completely changed the story of what happened between us, told people things that weren't true. I kept my eyes on the screen. That sounds hard, I said. It was, he said. I worked really hard on myself after that. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of reflection. I'm a different person now than I was then. I nodded slowly. He was not lying exactly. He had done the therapy. He had gone through the program. Linda had told me that herself. But the way he was telling it, like he was the one who had been wronged, like the story was about what had been done to him, made something tighten in my chest. I did not push. I just listened. And I stored it away with everything else. About 2 weeks after my meeting with Linda, I made a decision. I called my cousin Mina, who lives in New Jersey. We are not extremely close. She is a few years older than me, more serious, the kind of person who speaks slowly and thinks before she says anything. But she is also the person in my family I trust the most when things are complicated. She does not panic. She does not judge. She just thinks clearly when everyone else around her is falling apart. I drove to see her on a Saturday, telling Ryan I was doing a family thing, which was true, just not in the way he understood it. Mina made chai, and we sat at her kitchen table, and I told her everything from the beginning. She listened the whole way through without her expression changing much. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, turning her cup slowly in her hands. "Do you feel safe right now?" she asked. "In this moment? In your day-to-day life with him?" "I think so," I said. "He hasn't done anything to me. Nothing obvious." "Okay," she said. "But you're scared." "Yes." "Of what specifically?" I thought about it. "Of what he could become," I said. "Of what Linda said he already was. Of the fact that I have been with him for over a year and I feel like I'm just now actually seeing him." Mina nodded. "Can I say something that might be hard to hear?" "Yes," I said. "The fact that nothing obvious has happened yet does not mean everything is fine," she said. "Sometimes the most dangerous situations are the ones where you keep waiting for something obvious, and by the time it arrives, you are already in too deep to get out easily." I stared at my chai. "What would you tell a friend?" she said. "If a friend came to you with this exact story, another woman, not you, what would you tell her?" I knew the answer immediately. I did not even have to think about it. "I would tell her to get out," I said quietly. Mina looked at me. She did not say anything else. She did not have to. I drove home that afternoon with something clarifying inside me. Not peace exactly. It did not feel like peace. It felt more like when a fog starts to lift, and you can finally see the shape of things, even though the light is still gray and cold. I had been asking the wrong question this whole time. I kept asking, "Is Ryan dangerous?" As if I needed proof beyond what I already had. As if Linda's words and the newspaper article and my own instincts were not enough. As if I needed him to do something to me specifically before I was allowed to take it seriously. But the real question was simpler than that. Do I feel safe? Do I feel free? And when I sat with those questions honestly, not the version of them I wanted to be true, but the actual honest answer, the answer was no. I did not feel fully free. I had started editing myself. I had started thinking twice before mentioning certain names. I had started managing his reactions instead of just living my life. And I had only been paying attention for 2 weeks. How long had it been happening before I started paying attention? That night Ryan came over. He brought food, Thai, from the place we both liked, and he was in a good mood. Easy and warm and funny the way he could be when things felt light between us. We ate at my kitchen table, and he told me a story about something ridiculous that had happened with a neighbor of his, and I laughed because it was genuinely funny, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt normal again. And that is the cruelest part of something like this. The good moments do not disappear. They are still real. The man who brought me sunflowers and remembered that I hate cilantro and made me feel, for the first time in a long time, like someone truly saw me. That man existed. Those moments happened. I was not imagining them, but they existed alongside something else. And I was only now understanding that both things could be true at the same time, that someone could be warm and also dangerous, that someone could care about you and also not be safe for you, that love, or whatever I had been feeling, was not the same thing as safety. After dinner, we were sitting on the couch, and Ryan put his arm around me, and I leaned into him the way I always had. And he said, quiet and easy, "I'm really glad I have you, Preeti. I hope you know that." I closed my eyes. "I know," I said. and I thought, I have to end this. I just have to figure out how to do it without making him angry. That second part, without making him angry, I had not planned to think it. It arrived on its own, and the fact that it arrived on its own, without me trying, told me more than anything else had. I was already afraid. I had just been calling it something else. 3 days later, something happened that made the decision for me. I was at work, at my desk, in the middle of a normal Tuesday afternoon. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Hey, ran into James today. Small world. I went still. James worked in a completely different part of the city from Ryan. Their offices were not close. Their neighborhoods were not close. There was no logical reason their paths would cross on a random Tuesday. I typed back, "Oh, weird, where?" His reply came fast. "Near your office, actually." I was in the area, near my office, which was also near where James and I sometimes grabbed coffee. I put my phone face down on my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. He had been near my office, on a day he had no reason to be there, and the first thing he mentioned was James. My hands were very steady when I picked up my phone again, steadier than I expected. I opened Instagram. I sent Linda one more message. "I think I'm ready," I wrote. "Can you help me figure out how to do this safely?" Linda responded within an hour. "Yes," she wrote. "I'm here. Tell me what you need." I sat at my work desk with my phone in my lap, underneath the table where no one could see the screen, and I typed back, "I need to end it, but I don't want to do it in a way that makes things worse. I don't know what he'll do." She took a few minutes to reply. When she did, the message was longer than usual. "Don't do it alone," she wrote. "Don't do it at your apartment or his. Choose a public place if you have to do it in person. But honestly, and I know this might sound strange coming from his mother, you don't owe him a face-to-face conversation. Your safety matters more than his feelings about how this ends. Whatever you decide, make sure someone knows where you are. Make sure someone is with you or close by. And after it's done, please limit contact. Block if you need to. I know that sounds harsh, but I have seen what happens when he feels like he's losing control of a situation." I read that last line twice. I have seen what happens when he feels like he's losing control of a situation. I saved the message. I saved all of her messages, actually, in a folder I created just for that. I did not know if I would ever need them. I hoped I would not, but I saved them anyway. I called Divya that evening and told her I had made my decision. She did not cheer or say finally or make me feel like I had been slow about it. She just said, "Okay, what do you need from me?" That is the thing about a real friend. They do not make your crisis about themselves. They just show up and ask what you need. I told her I wanted her close when it happened, not in the room. I did not want Ryan to feel cornered or embarrassed, which Linda had said could make things worse, but nearby, in the same building, reachable within a minute if something felt wrong. We talked through the details. Where, when, what I would say, how I would keep it short and calm and not get pulled into a long argument. Divya had looked some things up. She is the kind of person who researches everything, and she told me that safety experts who work with people leaving difficult relationships often say the same thing. Keep it brief, stay calm, do not give a lot of explanations, because explanations invite negotiation, and negotiation can turn into something you did not plan for. I did not want anything I did not plan for. I chose a Saturday afternoon. Ryan and I had a casual habit of getting coffee on Saturday mornings, so I suggested we meet at a cafe we had been to a few times. Public, busy, familiar. Somewhere neither of us would feel out of place. I told him I wanted to talk about something. He said sure, no problem, and I could hear in his voice that he was not worried. He had no idea. That week in between was one of the longest of my life. I went to work. I answered his texts. I acted as normal as I could manage, which was harder than it sounds when your mind is somewhere else completely. I slept badly every night. I would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and just lie there in the dark, running through everything again. What I had learned, what I had felt, what I had seen, what I was about to do. There were moments when I almost talked myself out of it. I want to be honest about that. There were moments, usually around 2 in the morning, when everything feels bigger and more final than it actually is. When I thought, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm throwing away something real because of a story someone else told me. Maybe he really has changed, and I'm punishing him for who he used to be. But then morning would come, and I would remember the text about James. Near your office, actually. I was in the area. And the fog would clear again. Divya drove with me to the cafe on Saturday. She parked 2 streets over, and we sat in the car for a few minutes before I went in. She did not give me a big speech. She just looked at me and said, "You know who you are, Preeti. You have always known. Trust that." I nodded. I took a breath. I got out of the car. Ryan was already inside when I arrived. He was at a table near the window, 2 coffees in front of him, scrolling on his phone. He looked up when I walked in and smiled, that open, easy smile, and waved me over. And for just a second, standing in the doorway of that cafe with the Saturday morning noise all around me, I felt the weight of everything we had been. A year and a half. Real moments, real laughter, real feelings that I had not invented. I walked over and sat down. "Hey," he said, sliding my coffee toward me. "You look tired. You sleeping okay?" "Not great," I said. "Ryan, I need to talk to you about something." Something shifted in his face. Not dramatically, just a small tightening around the eyes. "Okay," he said. I had practiced this. I had written it out and then thrown it away, and then written it again and practiced it in the mirror until it stopped making me cry. I had kept it short on purpose. No long explanations. No list of everything I had discovered. "Just the truth," simply said. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I said, "about us, about where we are, and I've realized that this relationship isn't working for me anymore. I think we want different things, and I think it's better for both of us if we end things here." He was quiet for a moment. "Where is this coming from?" he said. His voice was calm, but something underneath it was not. "It's been building for a while," I said. "I've just been trying to find the right time to say it." "Is there someone else?" "No," I said. "This is about me and what I need." He leaned back in his chair. He looked out the window for a moment, then back at me, and I watched his face move through something. Not anger exactly, not yet, but something close to it, something that was deciding whether to become anger or not. "I feel like this is coming out of nowhere," he said. "We were fine. 2 weeks ago, we were completely fine." "I know it might feel that way," I said, "and I'm sorry for the pain this causes, but my decision is made." That last part, my decision is made. Divya had told me to say exactly that if he pushed back. Not "I think," or "I feel like," or "maybe it's better if." Something clear, something that did not leave a door open. He looked at me for a long moment. "Did someone say something to you?" he said. "About me?" My heart was beating very fast, but my face stayed still. "This is my decision," I said. "It's about what I need." He was quiet again. He picked up his coffee cup and put it back down without drinking from it. And then he said quietly, in a voice that was trying very hard to stay controlled, "I think you're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's mine to make." I stood up. I picked up my bag. I looked at him one last time, this man I had loved, or thought I had loved, or loved a version of, and I said, "Take care of yourself, Ryan. I mean that." And then I walked out. My legs were shaking by the time I got to the sidewalk. I walked the 2 streets to where Divya was parked, and I got in the passenger seat, and she took one look at me and said nothing, just reached over and held my hand. And I sat there shaking for a few minutes while the world went on around us. "It's done," I finally said. "It's done," she said back. That evening I blocked Ryan on everything. Phone, Instagram, email. Not because I hated him, not to be cruel, but because Linda had told me to, and because I had learned to trust the people who were trying to protect me. He tried to call twice before the block went through. I did not answer. That night I sent Linda one last message. "It's over," I wrote. "I'm okay. Thank you for what you did." "I don't think many people would have done what you did," she replied an hour later. "I should have done it sooner for others," she wrote. "I'm glad you're safe. Please take care of yourself." I read that message sitting on my bathroom floor, the same bathroom floor where I had sat months ago, staring at tiles, trying to figure out what that low humming feeling in my chest was trying to tell me. Now I knew. It has been 7 months since that Saturday morning in the cafe. I will not pretend the time has been easy. Heartbreak is heartbreak, even when leaving was the right thing. There were nights I cried for the relationship I thought I had. There were moments I missed him, not the truth of him, but the idea of him, the warmth of those early months, the sunflowers on a Sunday afternoon. But there were also other things. I started sleeping through the night again. I stopped editing myself before I spoke. I stopped checking my phone with that small, anxious feeling, wondering if I had said something wrong. I went to coffee with James and did not think twice about it. I went to Mina's for a weekend and came back rested instead of guilty. I started feeling like myself again. And I had not realized, until I got it back, how much of myself I had quietly been giving away. I am telling you this story not because I have everything figured out. I do not. I am still learning what a safe relationship looks like. I am still unlearning some of the habits I picked up without noticing. The flinching, the over-explaining, the sense that I need to earn my place in the spaces I inhabit. But I know this now in a way I did not know it before. Your instincts are not paranoia. That low humming feeling in your chest is not anxiety for no reason. When something feels off, it usually is. And the people who love you, even the ones you do not expect, will sometimes show up in the strangest ways to tell you the truth you are not ready to hear. Listen to them. And more than anything, more than any advice I could give, more than any lesson I have learned, listen to yourself. I am Preeti Gupta. I came to this country at 13 years old. I built a life here, piece by piece, through hard work and loneliness and hope and all the complicated, beautiful, difficult things that come with being a woman between two worlds. And I chose myself. That is the part no one can take from me. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you are going through something like this, you are not alone. There are people who will believe you. There are people who will help. See you in the next one.